Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. It's time for the J. Craig Podcast. Playing on headphones near you.
Gangsters. They populated our culture in movies, video games, and TV shows forever. Why are the gangsters so popular? Why do we want to root for the bad guy? And what makes a gangster movie a gangster movie? These are some of the topics we're going to talk about today at the J. Craig Podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm Jay. This is Ben.
Hey.
What's up? Hey, if you're not familiar with the J. Craig, hit the subscribe button, like, and follow the J. Craig Podcast. Get our podcasts or movie reviews and everything else that we have on there. So thanks for being here. Let's jump right in.
All right.
Ben.
Sounds good.
All right. Gangsta time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So what is the definition of a gangster movie? Because I have my definition of a gangster movie.
All right.
What is your definition
Well,
of a gangster movie?
So I got my little notes here. So my definition.
Got plans.
I think first of all you got to have organized crime. So I think that's so that's the business. Okay.
Right.
So the business is usually something illegal, something sort of shady, and then so you've got whether that's drugs or stolen goods or crooked businesses, right?
Right.
And then you have and then how do they maintain that? It's always through like a threat of violence. Right. So if you don't pay, or if you're going to go to the cops, you're going to get whacked, you're going to get hurt.
You're going to get your knees capped broken.
So that's like how they maintain that. It's through fear and it's through real violence.
Okay.
And then also just let's see here. No, that's my basic definition right there.
Okay, so it has to do with the threat of violence. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it also definitely has to have the organized crime. If you don't have that, you don't have a mafia movie, you don't have a gangster movie, right? It has to have organized crime.
And that's how they're making their money.
That's right. Okay, so I think of it a little differently, but first and foremost, absolutely organized crime. Mm-hmm. It has to do with that. But when I think of a gangster movie, I think first and foremost of the mafia. Mm-hmm. I think of a movie about the mob, about the mafia, about the family, about the rules, about that organization, not just a gangster, but about
everybody.
That foundation. So when I think about gangster movies, that's why I have a hard time classifying whether obviously The Godfather is a mafia movie, right? Mm-hmm. It's a gangster movie, it's a mafia movie.
Right.
But something like Scarface. Mm-hmm. No, Scarface isn't a mob movie.
Right.
He's a gangster.
He's a gangster, right?
He runs a mob, but it's not a mob movie. It's not about the family. It's not about his organization. It's about him. Right. So that's the difference I have. And that's where you had that line of delineation, right? It's like, what side are you on? Are you on a gangster side? Or are you on the mob side?
Yeah, I see you're separating sort of like your gangster, whether he's like a freelance with some guys that kind of help him,
right?
Versus that family,
yeah. And
even if that family is, for example, like a made man or something,
right?
You're talking about they still consider that family.
Sure,
it's not they're not just an associate; they're part of the whole, the collective whole.
Right. Okay, exactly. So that you think of like Reservoir Dogs, right? A movie about criminals. No, they're gangsters, maybe, right? Are they a part of a gang? I don't know. What makes a gangster a gangster?
All right.
You have to be a part of a gang to be a gangster, right?
I think.
Right?
I mean, for the most part,
that's the definition of it, isn't it?
Absolutely,
so, Bugsy Siegel, Lucky Luciano, those were gangsters, a part of the mob. Mm-hmm. So I think you can have a movie about gangsters like Pulp Fiction, right? Those are, it's a gangster. He's running the organization, but it's not really about them.
Right.
It's not about the mob.
You have gangster characters.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where I kind of draw that line, where it's like, is that a gangster movie or it just has a gangster in it?
Right. And, I was looking at a lot of lists online about, and Pulp Fiction pops up a lot on the gangster movie.
It does.
List. And I don't define it. Now, they're definitely the Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta characters. Those guys are gangsters.
They're hitmen.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
They're doing, and again, they're enforcing.
Now, is a hitman a gangster? Is a bounty hunter a gangster?
Well, I mean, is it? Well, you know what? I think that it really depends on
if freelancer.
If you're just a hitman, so if you're just going to, you got a target, you got to take them down. I don't see that as a gangster.
Right.
That's like a profession.
Right.
But what they're doing in Pulp Fiction, I feel like they'll collect money.
Yeah.
If they'll pay, they might not have killed those guys. If they have their stuff, they might not have killed them.
Okay. So in that regard, Vince and Jules are gangsters.
Yes.
They're hitmen. and they are gangsters, right? So this is where we're kind of drawing the line here, is because, yeah, they have to be a part of the organization, not just hired to go kill somebody.
Right.
So if you're that, then you're not a gangster, you're a hitman.
Right.
Okay. So that's a great point, because I think there's that line is, yeah, Pulp Fiction always pops in the list. I'm like, that's not a gangster movie.
Right.
It's like, yeah, okay, so, and that's okay. So let's talk a little bit more about, before we get into movies, because we like lists.
Right.
We're going to get to our list very soon, right? But, so let's talk a little bit more about that gangster part of it. So you got, they should be about the mob. They're not just about the characters. But what makes it so fascinating? Like, why do we like to watch the gangster? Why do we root for the bad guy?
Yeah.
Whether it's a gangster or not, we always like the bad guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's because the Wild West, we like the outlaws. We like the Tony Sopranos of the world. Hell, we're even rooting for the drug dealer in Walter White.
Right.
I mean, he's not a good guy.
No.
He's helping his family out, but
right.
how many lives is he destroying for his selfishness for his family, right? But that's, I think, where the mobster, the gangster thing, the bad guy thing comes into play, is you want to root for that guy.
And the thing is that, okay, so I'm going to say why I like rooting for him. Why do I like watching these movies?
Okay.
It's the lifestyle, okay? It's definitely the lifestyle that they lead. There's a fantasy of they're in this business, right? They don't work for they work for people, but they don't work for like a boss, right? They're not punching a clock, and that's already satisfying that fantasy.
Yeah, okay.
And then, of course, most of them, because it's illegal, a lot of it's off the book. They have a lot of money. They drive nice cars.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
You're bringing up a really good point that I'd never thought about. It's the lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not just that you're rooting for the bad guy, but you're rooting for the guy who you kind of want. You don't want to go kill. I don't want to kill people. I don't want to hurt people. But that would be a cool life, right? You're doing your own thing on your own dime and on someone else's dime usually, and that's really cool. That's a good point. Okay, carry on.
And you got usually in a lot of these they got the women as whatever one they want.
They can get what they want.
Right. And so these are guys that they're living it up.
Yeah.
They're always living it up.
Always.
So I mean, even if really they shouldn't, because that's bringing attention to them, which that comes up in a lot of these movies. But I mean, if you think about. I mean, obviously we're going to talk, I'm sure, about Goodfellas, but like that movie, a lot of the beginning of the monologue of that movie, he's kind of talking about how he saw how these guys were living and he wanted in.
100%. That's the whole opening.
And so it's like, what is it? Ever since I was young, I always wanted to be a gangster. Why?
Right. And he shows you, and they proceed to show you why.
He's a kid and he's having $100 bills stuck in his front pocket.
Right.
Why would
showing up with fur mink coats and big Cadillacs and all the you're running the show, and you're a big deal,
right? And when you see that, like it's like if you grew up with that type of thing going on,
right?
Would you you would like it, especially if you're a kid and maybe your morality's not totally set, and he's not seeing all the really bad stuff. He's seeing the sort of the glamour of it,
right? Okay, so that's a good point as well, because they always show you this. A Bronx Tale is another example of this. And any like inner gang movie, they always talk about this. They always show this part is trying to influence the young kids who don't have a family, who don't have that relationship, that don't have that bond with anybody, right? And they welcome them in with this type of love. With this is who you're going to be. We're going to take care of you. You do what we tell you. You're going to have this. You're going to be able to take anything. And I think that's a really cool part about it too, is that they influence those younger, and that's how they get them, right? They influence when they're young, when they're trying to form their own mind and find what they love, and they rope them in. Yeah. They rope them in, and that's what the bad guys do. They rope you in.
And the thing is like it's also not. It's not just presented as this is a job. It's presented as you're part of us now. You're belonging to someone or with someone, and you feel welcomed. Right. Especially if you don't, or you don't feel like you fit in with your family. I mean,
Yeah.
So you could see why they get trapped.
And you absolutely can. And then I think about the family part of it. I'm going to go back to that again. Because when you think about that family aspect with the mafia, and that's what's also really cool, is that huge network of the rules and the loyalty, and you can't break this, and you can't go over this person, you can't touch this person because of rules. That's also kind of fascinating, especially for people who don't come from structure. Right. They want something. They want to be a part of something. They
don't follow the law.
Right.
But they have their own laws. Right. That they follow very closely.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's another thing that's like, well, we're not following those rules, but we've got our own, and if you break them, there's always going to be big consequences.
Right.
They very rarely let things go.
Right, because if you let somebody slide,
they'll do it again.
You're weak.
Oh yeah,
And
right.
if you're weak on that guy next to you is going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start to have that leniency, then you're no longer the bad guy.
Right.
You're now trying to be, a good guy, and that's not what gangsters are. That's not what that's all about, right? They're about getting what they want and making sure everyone's doing what they're told.
And the thing is if they're enforcing what their crooked businesses and whatever they're doing with violence,
Right.
they do that. They enforce it the same way on their own associates and family.
Right.
I mean, even if it's reluctancy,
Right.
sometimes they gotta kill somebody, and they're really torn about it, but they're like, gotta do it.
Sometimes you got to kill somebody.
Right?
Sometimes you got to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I like about, I think the reason why we like it, and we kind of touched on it already, but was that seedy aspect, that seedy underworld that they're a part of, right? They're in charge of the underworld in a way, right? The criminal underworld, anyways, not the underworld like Hades, but they're in charge of the criminal underworld.
Right.
And so I think that's also, so you're rooting for the bad guy because of all these things about having the lifestyle, about being in charge, and having all these things given to you. But it's also that underworld, that network of everyone's connected in some way, shape, or form, or everyone's touching the same dollar bill in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
That's also fascinating. Why do we like in Star Wars? Big surprise. I'm bringing up Star Wars,
Right.
but we like learning more about. We don't know enough about them, but we want to know more about the underworld, the Jabba, the Boba Fett connection. All those things are happening behind the scenes in the criminal world. They touch on it in Solo a little bit,
Right.
But we want more of that. We always want to know more about that type of environment.
And I'm pretty sure they straight out call Jabba the Hutt. They call him a gangster.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, they're not shying away from.
No.
That's
No,
what he does.
he was in a criminal underworld. He's a gangster, and that was it, right? And he
Right.
has people doing his jobs for him. And if you cross him, hey, guess what? I can give you a job. I can pay you back.
Right.
Nope, you're done.
Right.
I'm done with you because what happens if I let you go?
Right.
What happens if I just say, okay, fine, make it 3 times the amount?
Right.
What's going to happen
Yeah,
next, right? You're going to get walked over, and next guy's going to come over.
You're getting tossed into the rank.
Into the rank. I just
Yeah.
watched it yesterday, so now it's in my top of my head. So
Yeah.
Okay, so what else do we like about this type of genre with the gangsters?
I think, all right, so this is one of the things that I was thinking about is, and, first of all, if you don't like violence, you're probably not going to be. A lot of people don't like gangster stuff because they do not like that violence that they do.
The violence. That's interesting. My wife hates violence, but she's also fascinated with Goodfellas and Godfather. She loves those movies, but she hates violence.
Right.
So it's interesting that she's fascinated with it.
And then I've seen some people that they don't like Goodfellas. They don't like The Sopranos.
Who are these people?
Well, yeah, right.
Who doesn't like Goodfellas?
If that's a good. I don't know who.
My mom probably, but that's me. Anybody younger than 50 should like Goodfellas.
Right. I agree. I definitely agree. There's a lot more into it than that.
Right.
But, like, there is, if you're like really into gangster movies, you kind of get off a little bit on the violence in it.
Sure.
And I like violence in movies, and it does go over the top, but like there's a certain weird romanticism with it's part of their job. So you're almost like, well, they had to kill that guy. And so, like, any type of movie, and this is just a little bit of a, I thought about, well, why is that? Why do we like it? Why are we forgiving it? Any type of movie that has violence in it, where it's kind of warranted. So, like a war movie. Well, those guys got to fight.
Yeah.
Right? And you root for them, no problem. Right? And they're killing people.
Yeah.
Or here's a good example, zombie movies. I think one of the reasons why they're so popular, people like them, because if it happened...
He knows me so well. I mean, he's just zombie movies now. I mean, come on.
A lot of people, they fantasize about this zombie apocalypse. Like, that would be awesome. Why? It's because you can go and kill a bunch of zombies, and you don't have to feel bad.
It's the lawlessness part of it.
Right. And the thing is that you can go out and you can shoot a zombie in the head and bash him with a baseball bat. You don't have to feel bad. You're defending yourself. But, like, it's presented as fun.
Yeah.
People
Most
like
times,
the idea.
yeah.
People like that idea. So I think that part, along with, like, the gangsters, it's part of their it's part of their job. They have to do it.
Okay.
And you're kind of like, well, that's their rules.
Right.
You should have never have crossed that guy, otherwise you'd still be alive.
That's right.
You forgive him with when sometimes it's ruthless. Most of the time somebody screws up.
And and if it's somebody who you don't want to see that happen to, you don't want to see that happen, but when there's moments where it's warranted, You definitely want to see that happen because you're in a gangster movie. There
Right.
are certain things that are required
Right.
when watching certain types of genres. Right? If it's a science fiction movie, there has to be certain elements that make it sci-fi. In a gangster movie, you gotta have organized crime, you gotta have violence. Show me a non-violent gangster movie, and I'll show you a movie that wasn't made.
Right.
Right? So,
Yeah, right.
it comes down to that. But there's a lot of cool things about gangster movies. Now we're talking, there's even more things. Like, how about the strength of the gangster? That confidence. The guy walking into a place and acting like he owns it.
That respect.
Yeah.
And that's
Respect.
the respect is that's always huge. When you're watching it, you're like,
Yeah.
man, it would be awesome to walk into a place and nobody's gonna mess with you and they're gonna do everything for you, but it's partially out of fear, but the respect is there because,
Right.
You might be involved in making sure that they're successful.
Okay, so there's a couple parts to that though. So if you're walking, I think there's a couple of different fascinations or romanticize. What did you say earlier?
Romanticisms.
There you go. I can't say that word apparently. All right.
Yeah.
So romanticisms, you have walking into a restaurant and being able to spend whatever you want, buy whatever you want, buy the whole place drinks if you want, buy the best bottle of champagne, the best bottle of this, and you have nothing to worry about. You have a pocket full of money.
They sit you at the best table.
Right,
You walk
right.
in, full house, boom. Best
So there's
table.
that part though. But now that goes with movie stars and people of fame, people of high power, not just gangsters. So then you take that into consideration with gangsters, and now not just that part of it. Now you have that respect you're getting while you're there. That fear that they could do something wrong, and that could go really badly.
Right, yeah.
Right? And just a hair like that. That's what I love about the certain characters is that when you cross them, if you do one wrong thing, like that's why I think in Goodfellas, Tommy is so amazing to watch because he's such a loose cannon.
Yeah.
He just, one thing could turn him into a murderer. And that's what's terrifying and exciting all at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And you got, the respect part of it is everybody's had like a crappy job where the boss just talked down to you and thought, treated you like crap. And then, so everybody's had those jobs and, the exact opposite is what happens in every gangster movie.
That's right.
Everybody's like, well, here he is. He gets all this respect and that's it. And you're like, wow, that'd be all right. You'd be like, So it's it's a very much of a fantasy.
So here's the thing I think about when you talked about zombies, so I'm going to go right back to that.
Sure.
You think of what you're going to do when the zombie apocalypse is, right? Like, how would you react and what would you do? What could you do? And what steps would you take? So I think of the same thing when you're talking about the mob or gangsters. Like, I've never encountered a gangster that I know of.
Right.
Right? Like, maybe I have, but I don't know. But I've never ran across a gangster.
Right.
So what would happen if you're in a situation like you're in a movie and this guy's like, yeah, you're gonna do this for me, or I ended up doing this for you, so now you owe me. Like, what do you do? Because you're screwed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, we know we romanticize it because it's the movie, so we think of movies first and foremost. But I think there's that part of it too. Is it's that romanticism that every bad guy we love. Not every bad guy, but we want to like the bad guy.
Right.
It's that same thing with
And
the Wild West.
you're rooting for him.
Yeah. You're, especially when there's a good character development where you're like, this guy's an awesome bad guy because he's not just a bad guy.
Right.
He has a heart. He has growth. He has things he's trying to accomplish. He's not just a bad guy for a bad guy's sake, right? Okay. The last thing I want to say about the fascination part,
right?
I think we've kind of touched on it, but I want to just lay it out there, was the loyalty part. So you have the violence, you have the family, you have the seedy underworld, you have that respect and that confidence, if you will, and you have that rooting for the bad guy, but there's that loyalty where you can't do anything against the family or you're going to pay a big price, right? That loyalty of knowing that people have your back. Now, again, that's part of what brings the younger people into gangs, is that loyalty and that family and that respect you're going to be getting from them, and knowing that they got your back. Because as we talk about, friendships, friends aren't always going to be there for you.
Right. Yeah, they're great. And then if you're part of this,
your family will be. And especially the family.
Yeah, right. They'll always be there to get your back.
Yeah, and I think that's what's also fascinating, especially for anybody who's grown up not with a big family and not having that kind of, that family bond is, you want that kind of familiarity with people and that relationship with people that they know that no matter what happens, they got you. And I love that.
And that would be something that not everybody's got that,
Not everybody has that.
And so, that's, again, part of the fantasy of it.
Yeah. So I want to say, before we get into another topic here on the gangster thing, and I'm probably going to read because I wrote this and I forgot what I wrote here, but I think what the whole aspect is the lawlessness, right? Is we like to see the bad guy do his thing. We want to see the bad guy be the bad guy. But we also know the bad guy is going to get what he has coming to him, right? We all know that Tony Montana, he needs to die, right? And we're okay with that because I think it's terrifying to think that there's a guy like Tony Montana who might survive that, right? You want him to die. At the same time, you're rooting for him, but you're not upset that he got plugged full of holes, right? So I think there's that level of fascination and terror that you have with the bad guy that you want to see him get what he's got coming to him at the very end. But at the same time, like for instance, like Michael Corleone, you don't want to see his daughter get killed. Well, you might want to see her daughter get killed because she's so bad, but you don't want to see his daughter get killed. You want to see something. You want to see something more. You want to see him die. You don't want to see the daughter die. But that's what's so powerful about the very ending of that movie is it actually does work for a moment there, for just a moment. So anyway, I think it's really fascinating that we have the bad guy sentimentality, but we're also okay with letting them go.
When they get theirs at the end.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, I mean, okay, so the part that makes us drawn to gangster movies, all the stuff we just listed.
Right.
You watch these gangster movies a million times, and something happens in the beginning where, like maybe somebody sticks the $50 bill in his pocket and boom, he's in the lifestyle.
Right.
So, you think, oh, that would be cool if that happened to me. If that,
right.
You feel like you would easily be drawn into it. It's
right.
appealing. But even after you watch a million of these movies, they're either going to get pinched at the end or they're going to die. Right. And then also these movies are kind of known for, like, they get creative with the deaths. They want other people to see what happened to that guy.
Right.
So it's horrifying.
Making a point on something, right?
And yet, you still root for him anyway, and you still would kind of want to be involved, even though you know that that's how they end.
Yeah.
That, to me, is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean... And
the other part about when you're talking about that lifestyle getting worked into it, it's also for the audience, for myself, is that fear of the guy or the kid who gets involved that way, and he doesn't belong there, right? He's not. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example that I don't have, but I know I've seen a movie before where he's the wrong kind of guy for his lifestyle, and now he spends the rest of his life trying to get out of it.
He can't. Really,
and he can't. You can't because it's the mob, man.
You're stuck.
You're done. You're right. So. I think we've kind of got a good idea of the definitions, why we like the gangsters, why we like the bad guy so much. But, the cool thing about gangsters, when we talk about, I mentioned at the open that movies, video games, TV shows, even music, it's spanning in our culture, it's everywhere. So you have gangster rap, which came out in the 90s, or the late 80s and 90s, that, I mean, it was predicated on gangsters, right, and on gang warfare, stuff like that. And so I think it's crossed so many different platforms now, it's everywhere.
And it's considered cool.
It is. It is.
Yeah. That's why it permeates all of our, pop culture and actual culture.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you your preference now. When you're talking about gangster lifestyle, do you think of gangsters from the 20s or the 40s, the gang? I think of for me, that's the mafia life. That's the mafia time, right? That's the time frame where I think of. Or do you think of, just like gangster rap time frame, like mid 80s, 90s, where it's that, or just people dressed up in suits who do bad stuff? Like, where do you think of when you prefer?
You mean what comes to mind?
Yeah.
What first comes to mind?
Yeah.
See, for me, I tend to think of the semi-modern, and I mean like 60s.
Okay.
60s to 90s, modern, sort of like New York style.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, suit wearing, yes, but not so much Tommy gun blasting.
Okay.
Type, like Prohibition era.
Okay.
Yes, that's a iconic gangster. That's kind of where it started. Like, it's a lot of that started there. At least, partially. And it's really well known for that. But for me, I think it just has to do with just sort of my preference. I mean, I obviously love Goodfellas and like movies like that.
Right.
So that comes to mind for me first.
That's
but there's, but there's so many different. I mean, you think of a gangster, you got the Prohibition era Tommy gun, you got the Italian gangster, whether it be the Goodfellas era, and then you have there's also modern gangster movies that are taking place now,
right? Like Sopranos and stuff like
exactly,
that. Exactly,
right. And so then that's their own thing.
Right.
You're like 90s and forward, and so it's there's different categories, but I tend to go right for the that
Okay.
I would say like 60s to 90s. Pre-smartphone and computer, they're on landlines, stuff like that.
Right.
Lots of cars, lots of burying people.
Mine goes right to the Prohibition time frame. Al Capone, Bugsy Siegel. That's what I think of when I think of a gangster immediately. When I think of a gangster movie, first thing that comes to mind is not necessarily Goodfellas, but something in the Prohibition time frame. That's what comes to mind to me immediately, and I think that's the fascination I have is that part. Because now it's also the past, which makes it different. When you think about the modern day stuff that you're talking about, that's more terrifying because that's real. Yeah. Because that's now. That shit's happening now. So I don't want to think about that. I want to think about the stuff that's make-believe.
Yeah, and you don't have to really worry about, what if this guy approached me to run liquor for him?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because that's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
You know, flipping a silver dollar, towards you. You can leave it in the past, and you can definitely enjoy it more as an actual fantasy.
Right.
That stuff isn't really. Well,
that's just like today in the days. If I think of today, the United States is more like the Wild West. It seems in a lot of ways, right? So it's like I'd rather have outlaws in the Wild West than outlaws now.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to get to our main 5 yet.
Okay.
But I want to talk about. Let's go into a little bit on the Godfathers of the gangster movies.
Okay, Godfathers of...
I think there's 3. Mm-hmm. There's 3 that I think of. Maybe there's more, but I'm going to put not really a Mountain Rushmore, there's only 3, but I'm going to put my 3 up, and I think you obviously, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, and Brian De Palma. And Brian De Palma's is really kind of on the iffy side there because they're more gangster as opposed to about a gang or about the mafia or about the mob, that little line there. But I always think of... I think these are the ones who really... Now, there was a lot of gangster movies in the 40s and the 50s,
loaded.
James... what's his name?
Cagney?
James Cagney. I mean, so many more movies like that. But I think for me, it really stems from Godfather, Mean Streets, Goodfellas. Those are the movies that I think of. The 3 main people out there who made gangster movies what they are today.
Absolutely.
Put it that way.
Yeah, I absolutely. All their movies, their gangster movies... They are all pretty well firmly cemented in the foundation going forward.
I mean, think about it. Godfather 1 and 2, not 3. Mean Streets, Gangs of New York, Casino. I mean, those are... I didn't even put one on there because I have it in my other list. And then Scarface and Carlito's Way. Yeah. I mean, you can put every one of those, and they are cemented in like lore of awesome, bona fide gangster movies.
And so... I saved this for the video, but I'm going to drop a bomb on you. Okay, so I wanted your reaction to this for the first time. So here's, believe it or not, I have actually never seen, in its entirety, any of the Godfather movies. Now, I have an explanation as to why. Because the thing is, I love gangster movies. Why haven't I watched it? Now, I've seen parts, okay? I've seen parts, and I pretty much know what happens and everything like that. Now, listen. Here's the deal. When you're big into movies...
We're running out of time here.
when you're big into movies, okay? Here's the problem. Eventually, you've seen all the important ones.
Okay.
You've sought them all out. Then you start going down the list past there, and you start seeing, well, what other ones are out there?
Okay.
And then you go through like the sort of second tier quality. And then eventually, you do get to the point where either you're waiting for something new to come out, in this case, maybe Scorsese's, The Irishman?
Yep.
And we can talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Or you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, like I did a couple weeks ago when I watched, I think it's Gangster Squad, somewhat more modern, okay?
Yeah.
Gangster movie where you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Ryan Gosling and
yes.
Yeah. I tried watching it.
And we could talk about that. But here's the thing. For whatever reason, I never watched the Godfather movies, and I know it's weird because I've been saving them.
That is extraordinarily weird.
Yeah.
That someone of your caliber, your breadth of movies, that you have not seen The Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah, and the thing is that, there's... I didn't save anything else. Those are like the 2 probably biggest movies that I have not seen.
Wow. So,
I don't even
know where to go now. I don't even know where to go. Now you've derailed me. You've derailed me because you haven't seen The Godfather 1 and 2.
And the thing is that, like I said, I got them, and I'm waiting for because the thing is, once I watched those,
Waiting for what?
Well,
I mean,
once I've watched those,
Godfather 4?
no, absolutely not. I've heard. I mean, I know that Godfather 3 is supposedly the biggest.
Don't
piece of
watch
crap.
it. Yeah, don't watch it.
But it came down to, it's one of those where you realize you've watched everything, but then I realized, I don't know when, but I'm like, I never actually watched them all the way through, and
It's amazing to me.
Well, the thing is that then I was like, and that's like all I have left of the big ones, the stuff
Okay.
that you should have seen.
Stuff you have to.
You
Right.
have to, and
It's like anybody who hasn't seen Star Wars who is in my age bracket.
right. I'm not gonna pretend like it's not weird, but
It's weird.
It was a little bit intentional because you ever watch a whole TV series that you're really into,
Yeah.
and it ends, and you're like, what do I do now? Well,
Move on with your life?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, it's a little depressing when it's over with, because then you got to pick something else.
Sure.
And with movies, I've watched so many movies that I hate when I'm trying to find something new and I can't. So,
Right.
Oh,
well, okay, you brought up an interesting point, though, too. Also, going backwards and looking at things that you've never seen that are supposed to be really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, back in 1998, AFI came out with their top 100, American Film Institute came out with their top 100 movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this, it was my last year of college, and I started going through this list. And I only saw a good handful of them, right? Star Wars was on there, Wizard of Oz was on there, stuff like that, but
probably Citizen
Kane and Casablanca and The Wild Bunch and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and Midnight Cowboy and all these movies that I've heard about, never watched. So then you see this list and you start going back to watch the movies that people say are the best. And a lot of people can see that and go, oh, it's an old movie, I can't watch that, or it's black and white, or it's a different time frame, so I can't watch it. It's like, how do you get by in your day if everything has to be modern? But at the same time, those movies are really important to watch because it really opened my eyes. Watching, I didn't go through every 100 movies, but I had to probably knock out a good 75% of them.
Yeah.
Knocked out a lot of them, and I was like, this is, almost every one of them, I was like, yeah, man, that belongs in this list.
Right.
That perfect, a great movie, and I was like, I never even saw The Wild Bunch at that point. I never saw Once Upon a Time in the West. And I was like, holy crap. Boom, the world has opened up into possibilities of movies. So, sorry, segue, because you opened up that I love that. Going back and watching shit that should be seen. Mm-hmm. He has homework to do, man.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, when you've watched as many movies that I have, there's not a lot of that untreaded territory.
There's not.
left,
No.
And that's the only reason. It's not because I'm, like, afraid. It's like, you know what? The best I can say is, that, like, bottle of wine you've been saving, and it was $100, and you've got it in the back of the cupboard, and you're like, oh, special occasion.
Right.
That's what it is for me. And so, like, of course I'm going to watch them eventually, but look, I have not seen A Bronx Tale. I've probably seen half of it, though. Okay. I've watched like half of it on TV.
I honestly have never seen the whole thing either.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
saw it in bits and pieces.
Yeah, and it's a long movie.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the whole thing of Once Upon a Time in America.
I don't like it.
You don't like that one?
No, and I love Sergio Leone. Mm-hmm. I love Once Upon a Time in the West, Good, Bad, the Ugly, all his movies, but I cannot get through Once Upon a Time in America. Now, Craig, my old partner here, loves it. I can't get through it. I just can't get through that movie. But, so, being hard on you because it's The Godfather. There's a lot of movies that I have not seen myself. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of movies that I've neglected to see that I probably should see. And there's times where my brother-in-law will say, you haven't seen that movie, and it might be more of a modern movie. I'm like, no, haven't seen that. Typically, the older movies I try to check out first. I want to see where things come from. But, I also have not seen everything. And I'm sure there's on your list, there's some that you've never seen, that I've never seen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like one is Once Upon a Time in America. I cannot get through it.
Yeah,
I've never watched the whole thing.
I've only seen parts of it, and
Yeah.
and it's also pretty long too.
It's very long.
So the thing is that it would have to be. I haven't given it that full treatment, so I might feel the same way. I don't know yet.
Well, like anything, any movie worth its weight needs to be seen in its entirety from beginning to end, and not in segments, because you can't. You can't do it. Now you can do that with a book. You have to. Typically, I can't read a book in one sitting, but the movie, it's meant to be that way, so you have to be able to see it in that entirety. It's hard to really fall in love with a movie if you're watching bits and pieces.
Right.
You know, so,
Yeah,
but
and
I hear
the
you.
parts that I've seen of A Bronx Tale, I really enjoyed. So,
Okay.
I have it, and so that's going to be. I'm not saving that. Though,
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's one of those movies, yeah.
But it is
I've-
one of those
yeah.
movies. It's on the list. Yeah, I didn't mean to.
No, hey,
blow
hey.
your
Woo!
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm sure there'll be movies I haven't seen. So let's talk now. We'll save our top 5.
yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about some of the. I talked about the Godfathers of the gangster movies. Some of those, the foundations of the gangster genre. But let's talk about some of the rest that were maybe at least not on my list. Maybe they fall on your list. So
Okay.
so make sure you don't see anything that falls on your list there. Sure. But let's talk about something like obviously Donnie Brasco. Right now, a lot of people might consider that to be on the top of the list, right? But I don't know. I guess it is a gangster movie and a mob movie all at one time. It's about a gangster. It's about the family. So it definitely falls in that genre. But I know a lot of people love that movie. It's probably there's a reason why it's the first one on my best of the rest list. But I really like Donnie Brasco. I think it's a really cool movie, especially with Johnny Depp not being Johnny Depp.
Right.
He's actually playing a character, not being a character.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you not be that weirdo?
Can you
for
just
once?
not? Yeah. Can you just not be Jack Sparrow anymore?
Just be a guy?
Just be a guy.
Be kind of a cool guy, and
Yeah,
that's it. Don't
yeah.
go way over the top with
Right.
it.
He's gotten into that mode now where he's like, every movie he makes, he's like a cartoon character.
Yeah, like every yeah. He's
Every
gotta
movie.
he's gotta have a weird face.
Have you ever seen Traffic?
I have. It's been a while.
Okay,
now that's the one where there's like
It's a Steven Soderbergh movie.
Yes.
It's different time frames.
And
Washington, D.C.
Criterion released it and everything. And there's
Beautiful movie.
Yes, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Now,
but I enjoyed it.
I have a question mark there because it really doesn't belong in the gangster genre, but it deals with the cartels. Now, the point of difference here is cartel considered a gang. Is that the same thing? That should be the same thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's just not a gang from here. It's a gang from another country.
it's their style. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
It's their
So,
style.
so I guess so it does
absolutely.
fit then. So it does fit then.
Yeah, I think it does
Okay.
fit. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not just about American mobsters. Because how about Miller's Crossing, one of the great Coen brothers movies?
One of the few that I haven't seen actually.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like them a lot.
Yeah,
so I'll have to see that.
You have to see that one. That's a really good one because it's, you have the Coen brothers who are well known for their comedies, right? You have Raising Arizona, you have their Oh Brother Where Art Thou, you have the comedies, and then you have No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, the
You have
serious,
the
like
serious
really,
ones.
yeah.
And that's what Miller Crossing is. It's more of that straight up, in your face, real movie as opposed to being slapsticky. Road to Perdition.
And that's not on my top 5, but I put that in my list of kind of like what you have here, the other movies.
Yeah.
And I loved Road to Perdition.
I did too.
It's
a beautiful looking movie.
and that is one of my favorite. I would say like sort of your iconic gangster
Yeah.
prohibitioner type.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite one of those. And it is. I think it came out in 2002, something like
that,
somewhere
yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, and it's got like sort of. It really makes you root for the good guy,
yeah.
right?
The good gangster.
The good gangster, and then the bad guys are
you despise them.
You really hate
Right.
them, and that's really important.
It's really hard to do too, right? It's really hard
when
to
you
do.
really hate the bad guy, and they create that without it being like over the top ridiculous. When they're just like you can't wait. I mean, the tension building is awesome, and in that movie they nail that.
They did, and the two movies I mentioned, Traffic and Road to Perdition, I love because I was in film school at that point, so cinematography was big for me at that point, and both those movies use the color palettes and the lenses in certain ways, and they use such processing of the film stock in certain ways to give you this real awesome look. Traffic, every nation or every geographic section they're in Traffic is filmed differently. So there's like a red hotness, a yellow hotness in the Mexican area. There's like a blue coldness in the Washington, D.C. It's very different in their look. And then
very deliberate.
Very deliberate, yeah, very deliberate. And then Road to Perdition.
It was like green.
Oh, God, it was green.
Yeah.
It had just a beautiful composition to it. I think it was Conrad Hall.
Yeah,
Conrad Hall is an amazing DP from back. He died not too long ago. I think it was Conrad Hall who did that.
I don't really know what the perception of Road to Perdition was. It feels like an overlooked movie.
I think it does. I think,
and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And maybe it could have just been went right when it came out.
Yeah.
It was like maybe a bad time for it to come out.
Right.
Well, I don't know if it got like bad. I don't know what the reviews are.
I don't know. I'd like to look in there and see what people are saying about it now, 20-something years later.
Yeah,
or,
but
20-something, almost
I
20
know
years.
that at the time, and I've watched it a few times. I love that movie. Yeah.
I've only seen it one, maybe twice, but I need to watch it again. And I also like it because of that father-son thing. You know, he's taking his son across the country, and then you have the family who gets killed. Oh, yeah, there's some really good stuff in that movie. But cinematography-wise, if you want to watch a movie as a study in cinematography, that and Traffic are just glorious.
Absolutely.
So amazing. It's not really a gangster movie, but Bonnie and Clyde kind of applies. They're more of the bank robbers. They are bank robbers. So I guess it really doesn't apply to a gangster movie. They're in the underworld in a way. They're criminals, but that's not a gangster movie.
They turned with Bonnie and Clyde. They kind of turned it into a little bit more of a like a love story for that.
Oh
movie.
yeah.
So they took a different approach with that, and then compared to the real people, the real Bonnie and Clyde, they took a lot of liberties, the Hollywood liberties, to make that movie what it was, and they weren't so focused on the like this dark. It's not a dark movie.
No,
really.
it's a fun movie.
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, except for the ending.
Right, but spoiler alert. You haven't seen, no, but yeah. Yeah, so then...
Did you watch the television show they made for, I think it was an AMC miniseries for Bonnie and Clyde?
I didn't.
I tried watching it. I was having a hard time getting through it. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, and those AMCs are sometimes like that. You give them a couple episodes and you're like, wow, this is awesome. Or you're like, nope. No, okay, second episode, and you're done.
Well, I was trying to watch Highwaymen, which is the other version, the other side of the story.
Right.
It's the guys chasing after Bonnie and Clyde, right? And it's Woody Harrelson and it's Kevin Costner. Should be money.
It wasn't.
Couldn't get through it. Can't watch it. It's slow.
I was gonna watch it, and well, that's depressing. Now.
Yeah,
I guess I'm not gonna go back
no,
after
man.
that.
Then I looked into it. I'm like, wait, maybe I was being distracted because when I watch TV at home, there's too many distractions. That's why I love movie theaters. I'm there, I'm locked in, and there's no distraction. But at home, you have my kids, the dog, the wife, the phone. I keep my phone, throw that shit away, watch the movie, man. That's what I gotta do.
Yeah.
I hate that. But yeah, okay. So don't watch The Highwaymen, or maybe do and just go to sleep. Okay. So how about I talked about my iconic aspect, but how about Bugsy? Warren Beatty. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen it.
I had by your reaction, I knew you didn't see that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so
when did that come out?
In the 80s.
That's
late 80s, early 90s.
That's an 80s movie.
Late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there. Yeah. I think. Somewhere around there, not in the 80s, maybe more like 90s, early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Warren Beatty, Annette Bening. It tells a story of Bugsy, who created the casino. He created the Las Vegas Strip. Not the casino, because that was out in the east side as well, but he created the Strip. He created the first casino in the desert.
Is it pretty good?
It's actually pretty cool. It's more of a, and it's Warren Beatty directed it.
Oh, okay.
And he's done that before, so it's a well done movie.
So he did that, and then he was also like in Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Like right around the same.
Probably around the same time. Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
And then give a couple years.
That was probably the death of his career. Was I think that right there, right? Anybody who's in that movie got tanked.
Right.
But Bugsy was a movie that I can't really recommend unless you really want to know more about that particular character and diving into how because he's been portrayed so many different ways. If you look at Untouchables, no, not Untouchables. What's that gangster movie with the kids? It's like the Young Gun version of the gangsters. Mobsters. Christian Slater and
I have it on deck. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's in it and a few other guys. Yeah, the new gangster.
Yeah. It was the kid gangster. Yeah. And
did you see that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, back in the day, absolutely.
That one I actually have the Blu-ray for it, so it's on deck.
I don't mind it.
Okay,
it's it is what it is. It's like I love Young Guns, so I'm okay with it.
It's fun.
Yes,
it's fun,
absolutely.
And that's honestly, that's sort of like my baseline.
Right.
If it's at least fun,
it has to be fun at least, right? And then it can still be a bad movie. You still have fun with it,
right? Yeah.
So there's always that.
I think Young Guns is a good comparison.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't like that movie?
Right.
But you're not gonna say like put that in the 100.
No, but I love Young Guns
because awesome.
It's also been when it comes out. I saw that when I was younger, and I was just like, yeah. it was just so fun. But with Gangsters, it's funny because it's a different version of Bugsy, and then you've had so this gets into the character of Bugsy and how crazy the guy was and how loose he was, like a loose cannon kind of guy, and it really dives into his character a bit more. And the fact that he, helped develop the aspect of what we have now in Las Vegas, that's also interesting to me, is that foundation of where he came from and how he started that off. Okay, how about, you said Bronx Tale already, how about New Jack City?
Yeah.
Now we're getting to a more modern day. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got New Jack City, you have the new gangs, right? That in colors can be worked in the same kind of
the ones you got here at the end there, you have Colors, Hoodlum, Harlem Nights, and then we have, there's a couple more, like, I actually, when we were talking about, like, sort of categories, there's like a urban, I would say, maybe, or whatever. I would say urban gangster movies.
Gangster movies.
Yeah, and
like,
I would put,
example.
like, I mean, I think New Jack City is a perfect one.
Okay. Colors.
Colors, King of New York. Is it King or Kings of New York? King of New York? With
Christian
Christopher Walken.
There it is.
Christopher Walken, yeah. So that movie, and then how about, like, what about Boys in the Hood?
Absolutely. Well,
and Menace to Society. I think that they eventually
they deal with gang members, not so much about they deal with gangs.
It's not going to be that traditional,
right?
But it's definitely the urban version.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so they have their people that they got each other's back.
Right.
They are willing to do violence to
Anybody.
maintain whatever they need to get done.
Right.
Most of their money is gotten illegally, and there is not quite the same togetherness, but there definitely is like a family element.
Sure.
There.
Yeah.
There seems to be in urban gangster movies. There's a lot more not following the rules, double crossing, more people that are killing each other out of passion. Or because they just think they deserve it and that's it, and they're going to do that. Whereas other people in sort of the other sort of traditional gangsters, they're more following the rules a little bit more. They still break them, but
don't you feel
it's
that
a little looser?
Back in the day, there was a head. And now, like the urban gangster movies or urban gangster aspect or the genre, if you want to call it that way, that subgenre, there's no, except for like New Jack City, there's no head. It's a gang. And there never seems like in Colors, there's no gang leader, it seems like, right? It's just, it's a gang.
Right.
And there might be somebody inside that's the linchpin, but I think back in the day, it used to be about that one.
The guy.
The Don.
Yeah,
right?
The one guy. And New Jack City has that. And so it is missing from a lot of
the new modern gangster movies in the way.
And I think part of that is because, they're drawing more from, a little bit more from reality.
Sure enough.
You got multiple gangs and then they fight each other. You know what I mean? Like, so so that happens. So
I have one that I want you to put on your list because I have a feeling you haven't seen it. It's called A Prophet. It's a French-made movie about a young guy who goes into jail for I forgot what he drug smuggler or something, and he ends up while in jail becoming the top,
the guy,
and it's pretty cool.
From within he becomes
from
that
within
guy.
He becomes. Then when he gets out, it's like, oh yeah, you should see it. It's really cool. It's called A Prophet.
And I have to ask, does he start when he goes in? Is he starting from the bottom?
Pretty much, yeah. If I remember, he's like starting from the very, very bottom.
See, now that to me that's interesting right there.
Yeah.
Because when you go into prison, typically who puts you in your hierarchy of where you land.
Right.
Whether you have money coming in or things coming in, guards taking care of you.
Right.
If you come in at the bottom and you make your way to the top.
And you start manipulating your way through and facilitating way things happen, and all of a sudden now people owe you favors, and all of a sudden it just keeps compounding.
To go from the bottom to the top without starting anywhere in the middle, like a lot of the scene in Goodfellas, they have their own like nice room and like that stuff. Some of that stuff didn't exist.
Yeah. So you should watch that. Put that in your list of things that you need to see, along with The Godfather 1 and 2. Is A Prophet.
I didn't think you were going to be giving me that much crap for it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that I still had uncovered rock.
Hey, I'm glad that you're honest. That's awesome. Okay, so that's like that's a good example of like the best of the rest. Now, there's a couple more things. Just quickly, I don't have a lot of examples here, but the Yakuza. So you talk about gangsters. You have the American gangs. You have of the past.
Right.
You have the urban gangs of now. or the 80s or whatever.
Right.
And now you have also the cartels of Mexico or other Central or Southern American countries. But then you have the Yakuza, the Japanese gangs, which are terrifying to me.
Yeah.
You know? Because I love samurai movies. I love the Japanese culture. I love the samurai. I love that old way of obedience, of loyalty, and of servitude. That, you know, that whole thing is really fucking awesome to me. And now you have the Yakuza, who are just I mean, you talk about ruthless, right?
They're brutal.
Right.
They're brutal, and there's a, you know, that sort of that calmness that's sort of part of it. That's disturbing.
Well, that's one thing. Yeah, there's always a calmness when it comes to these things, right? There's always a calmness. But how about this? Hold on. John Wick's.
Yeah.
The John Wick movies. It's totally about mob and gangsters and underworld.
Oh, absolutely.
So that totally belongs in this list.
Yeah, I think so.
Holy shit, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you've got, well, I mean, honestly, I thought you were going to go there earlier.
Wow.
When you were talking about it. When you were talking about the seedy underworld.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their hands on every dollar.
Right.
That's John Wick. I thought you were going to lead into John
Wick. Look at that.
You made it there, though.
We got there.
All on your own.
We got to chug along. We're going to get there, right?
Yeah, so,
that's awesome. Okay. But I said the Yakuza, so the two movies that I have are Black Rain, a Ridley Scott movie.
I love that movie.
Pretty one of the moments where, if you remember, spoiler alert, where Andy Garcia gets his head chopped off, I was like, damn, that sucked.
I feel like a lot of people kind of forgot about that movie a little bit.
I think so.
You know, but
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I like that movie.
Yeah.
Michael Douglas is in it.
Michael Douglas, yeah. And now I didn't really care for Rising Sun, even though it's got a younger Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery. There's some coolness there, but it's not a very good movie.
It's just okay.
It's just okay.
It's like one of those movies that you watch on like TNT.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's one of those ones
right,
you watch
right.
on there. Yeah.
All right, so how about we talked about, you know, that we started talking about that definition, right? About the gangster versus mob, and they're one and the same, but some can be just about gangsters. So how about the movies about the criminal underworld? So let's work some of these into play, because of course we haven't mentioned, we talked about it, but Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction.
All right.
Now, Reservoir Dogs is about criminals. They're not really a part of a gang, right? They're a part of a gang right now.
Yeah,
they're not.
They've been assembled for a job.
They're not in a family. So I would never consider that a gangster movie.
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't consider it either, because I think it's easy for people to slam it into there because they're all wearing like suits.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They all shooting people. They all have, exactly. But then
they have their rules.
Right.
You know, that they have to follow with their identities being a secret.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't consider that to be a gang. They're gangster kind of guys, sort of.
Yeah.
But they're not, they're definitely, they've been hired to do a job.
Exactly.
They're supposed to be parting ways.
Right.
At the end. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be a one and done.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of a movie it's about gangsters in a way, but it's definitely not a gangster movie. It's a criminal movie. It's like Heat. Heat is not a It's a crime movie. It's a heist movie. It's not a gangster movie. Yeah, the people involved, like the guy who's giving the money, he might be in the mob. He might be the front money guy, you know. But it's not a gangster movie.
You can have genuine gangster elements in a movie, but if it
doesn't make it a gangster
if it doesn't, I think it doesn't encompass the majority of the
Right.
film. Okay, I think the Pulp Fiction is a great example. You know that the
Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah, you know that part of it. Those are gangsters, like real ones.
Right.
Okay, but that's not the whole movie.
Right.
It's
a part of it. Just because a part of it is that doesn't make the whole thing a part, right? It's the sum is equal than or whatever the.
And I think the reason that Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction made so many of these lists of best gangster movies is when you think about it, you think of John Travolta and Samuel Jackson in that suit with the guns.
Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs, the five guys walking with the suits.
Yeah.
That iconic imagery.
Yeah.
You're linking it with gangster, and I think that people are a little too quick to throw it into that category.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think they just look at guns, they look at violence, they look at organized crime, and they think gangster. But there's a difference.
Yeah.
Unless you're not breaking things down like we are.
Right.
Okay. So we got. How about two of my favorites? These are really inspirational for me when I came out in film school. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
For everybody, yeah.
Yeah, right? Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and Snatch. I emulated so many scenes from those movies in some of my short films. Just camera work and style and setup. I love those movies. But again, not gangster movies.
They're on every top gangster movie list, and I felt the same way. When I saw them, I was like, don't get me wrong. They're amazing. They're amazing films. I love them, watched them many times. But yeah, you got too many small crews going up against each other doing their own thing,
Right.
for it to be considered a collaborative gangster movie.
Right now, Bricktop in Snatch, he's
Absolutely.
he's a gangster. He's
Absolutely
in charge
a
of a
gangster.
gang. He's a mobster. He's a mafia guy,
And
right?
he's the guy.
Right, he's the guy. Now, in Lock, Stock, totally different. Like you said,
You got
too many groups of people.
tons
There's
of
no
crew.
essential group that's like this that group. So those don't belong there. So we're agreeing upon those four. And okay, so we talked about Reservoir Dogs. How about where it came from? At least one of the references where it came from. Infernal Affairs.
I haven't seen it.
Really cool. Asian movie, Chinese, Korean. I'm not sure where it's from, but it's from. I think it might be like Chow Yun Fat movie. Like I think he might have been in it. Or
Okay.
no, he was in City on Fire, which was another movie they took to make Reservoir Dogs. So he took a lot of inspiration.
And is
Obviously,
Infernal Affairs 80s, 90s? Where's that falling?
it's before. It's in the 80s.
Okay.
Early 80s, before Reservoir Dogs.
And like another one that I saw
Mid-80s.
a lot on the list, which looks like it might be a real gangster movie that I want to see, is I think it's A Better Tomorrow.
Yes, that's another one of those.
I
kind of
haven't,
movies,
I haven't seen that one
Right.
either, but that was showing up on the list.
Now, maybe I'm getting confused. Is Infernal? I'm thinking Infernal and Infernal, not Internal. Infernal Affairs, the Asian foreign movie. I want to say it's the Reservoir Dogs. You know where it got inspiration, but I'm also
precursor,
thinking
yeah.
maybe I'm thinking of the Matt Damon Jack Nicholson movie. Help
The
me out here.
Departed?
Yeah.
The Departed.
I think I'm wrong. I think Infernal Affairs is more Departed.
Okay.
I think it was City on Fire and a bunch of other movies that were inspired for
Oh, okay.
inspiration for Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, but Infernal Affairs is actually a really good movie. Same kind of thing. Okay, one of my favorites that didn't make my list because I don't think it's a gangster movie, about a gangster, Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have
Of
seen
course,
it.
it's Walter Hill, man.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And that's a movie that not many people are talking about.
Nope.
They kind of forgot about it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where? Okay, I got a test for you, Ben.
It's been a while, so go ahead.
What inspiration or what did that movie come from? What was it taken from?
You got me.
Fistful of Dollars. Clint Eastwood, Sergio Leone, his first one.
Really?
Yeah, same exact story. So,
now I'm gonna have to go through it.
yeah, exactly right. So there's been 3 versions of that movie. Okay, it was Fistful of Dollars, Last Man Standing, and there was one more that just came out, which was more of a modern day version of it. And I forgot what it was called, but they've done it in 3 different ways.
And it was Gangster Squad. No.
Yeah, exactly right.
No.
I forgot what it was. Now it was driving me crazy. But yeah, Fistful of Dollars is also about gangs. It's a western, but they're gangs that he's playing with each other. He's playing against each other, and that's what Last Man Standing is on. So if you ever want to see Fistful of Dollars, which you should, see Fistful of Dollars.
Yes.
It's a classic. You've seen it?
Yes, I have
okay.
seen it.
So it's the same story.
But I've never
Made the connection?
I never made that connection on
Okay.
my own. I haven't
Right.
done a lot of reading about it, but
I saw it when I saw it. I saw Last Man Standing first.
right.
Okay, I saw it initially first, and then
Oh,
when
yeah.
I went and when I discovered Sergio Leone, woo!
Then you went back.
and all of a sudden I was like, Fistful of Dollars. Wait a minute. And I watched Last Man Standing. I'm like, that's the same movie. And I was like, literally, it's the same exact story, the same exact premise, the same exact interactions.
So now
Pretty cool.
now I got to watch both of them. Sort of. I
You
got
sure do.
to make the comparison.
Oh,
now.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I got it now. It wasn't Fistful of Dollars first. It was Akira Kurosawa who did Yojimbo. Same exact story. Japanese gangs playing against each other, and he's a lone Ronin who's gonna play on each other. And then Fistful of Dollars.
And then Last
Man
Man
Standing.
Okay.
Japanese or samurai, Western, gangster. Come on. That's pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
That's pretty
Yeah,
damn cool.
absolutely.
But what I like about Last Man Standing is not just Bruce Willis drinking a whole lot throughout the movie, is Christopher.
In fact, he looks
Christopher
awesome
Walken.
as a gangster.
Yeah, he does, right? And then Christopher Walken playing the crazy guy who is just like the loose cannon guy. It's a pretty cool movie. I like that
It
movie.
is. It's a good movie.
The last one I have here on the criminal underworld is Payback with Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
It's just a gangster movie, not a mob movie. It's about a gangster.
Yeah. And
Or a criminal. He's not even a gangster, he's a criminal.
Let's tie this back. Do you remember the tagline for Payback for that movie?
I don't.
Okay. And for whatever reason, I just know this, okay, because when the movie was coming out, it kind of sold me.
Okay.
The tagline, I believe, was "Get ready to root for the bad guy."
That's right. Exactly.
And well, that's what we're talking about.
And
here.
that's exactly what we're talking
And
about.
They spelled. I mean, they literally spelled it out.
And they nailed it though, because he's so fun to watch, because Mel Gibson is being such a goof in a way. Like he's like a bumbling guy throughout the movie. And the way he's such a goof in the movie, but it works so well.
And he's a badass in that movie,
right.
And that's a great example of like, you want to see him get his payback. You want to see it. You're like, that whole movie is like that, which is really cool.
It's a really cool movie.
He's working his way down the list of people. Although, aside on Payback, I haven't watched it yet, but there's the theatrical cut, which I've seen. And I have
Payback.
Not Payback, and there's also a director's cut of it, which is quite different than and again, I don't know like all the differences, but there's definitely like so the theatrical Payback is like blue toned cinematography, like really blue, and then I guess the director didn't like that or whatever, and also the way that it was cut. The director's cut is a lot longer and a lot different, and I feel like the theatrical one is more accessible, more Hollywood.
Okay.
And I've heard that the director's cut is a lot, and I have both. The interesting thing is, I'm a big Blu-ray guy. Okay, I mean I have a massive collection of them.
Oh shit.
And so the thing with Payback is it has a U.S. release Blu-ray. But if you want to watch the theatrical cut, you actually have to buy the UK release. And that actually has both cuts. You can watch either or. All right. So if you buy it on Blu-ray, you're watching the director's cut. But when I saw it in the theater, obviously it was that's what I was used to.
I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on video back when it came out, and I love that movie.
Yeah, VHS and DVD were theatrical cut, so it's the same thing as theater.
Yeah, and I think I did rent it at one point with the director's cut or something like that. I don't remember what the differences were for me, but I think I did try to watch it, or maybe I think I revisited it with the director's cut, but I didn't know what was different.
Yeah.
Maybe there was too much time in between to know
possibly.
The differences.
Yeah, I've been told that it's a lot different tone.
Okay,
and so I haven't watched it yet, but I do have I've got the UK double feature of both of them. So
of course you do.
Yeah,
you have things that I don't know why you have this. I'm like, wow, you have that too.
I have Last Man Standing on Blu-ray.
Yeah, you sure do.
Yeah,
you sure do.
Yeah, nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about that in HD, but I do. I found that they threw that on I don't know. They threw the Last Man Standing. It's on a double feature
with I think you showed me last time I was here was
something else.
Yeah.
I think it's
like the big blue.
It's like there's something like it's like Last Man Standing, and I believe
and big top Pee-wee.
No, it's that not even no. It's that movie that I believe it's like that Josh Hartnett and Bruce Willis buddy cop movie or something. Like
not Hollywood Homicide. Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. That's it. It's paired with that movie.
God.
Yeah, that's the double feature.
That's a double feature.
Whatever I think they pair stuff that they don't think is going to sell individually,
right?
Which again speaks to the disrespect that Last Man Standing is getting here. They just threw it on a disc with another movie.
Typically, there's a connection though. Actor, topic. There should be some kind of connection, right?
But there's some companies, they just have the rights to these movies.
True enough.
And then they pair these two together. Now, don't get me wrong. They usually try to. Like guys are in these movies, and one of them's not a love story. They're both like kind of action, that's about it.
Okay, all right. So before we get to our list, I have one more little small section here of movies that I have that I'm not a fan of in this particular genre. Okay, all right. We already mentioned one, Once Upon a Time in the West.
What? It's Once Upon a Time in America.
Once Upon a Time in America.
Yes.
Sorry, I wrote it down wrong, and I'm reading my rating. I just can't get through it. Love the filmmaker. Just really want more, and I've tried. Now, here's the thing. If I, much like Space Odyssey, 2001, if I watch that at home, I'm out. Out. It's so somber and it just
I know.
It just puts you out. I saw it in the theater, and I was like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. Because I was actually sitting up.
You're locked in.
I'm locked in, and I finally got through the whole thing.
Yeah, and
I was like, oh my God, now I see the difference. So I think the same thing would happen with this. If I was able to see America on the big screen, locked in, I would probably like it a lot more. But
or at
because
least
I'm watching
appreciate it. Yeah,
right.
maybe appreciate it a little bit.
And I'm watching it at home, and it's just so slow. Even the music is different for me. It's Ennio Morricone, and I love his music, but it just doesn't work for me because also I think of Sergio, and I think of Western. And that's primarily what I think of, and it's not a Western, so it doesn't fit for me. Okay, how about one that I really, really wanted to like because I love Tom Hardy, and I really like John Hillcoat. Lawless.
See now, I disagree. I liked Lawless.
Did you?
I really did. I mean, I thought it was fun. One thing that that Lawless did right that I remember is it's got a very hateable bad guy in it.
I'm trying to think who it is. Who's the bad guy in it?
I don't remember what his name is. All I remember is that he's got, he has this really wide part right down the middle of his head.
Oh, yeah.
And then his hair is
Right.
combed this way.
Right.
And he's just a weirdo.
Okay.
And then you're like, and he's like, you feel like a stiff breeze would knock him over, but they're having such a hard time with this guy.
Right, right.
So that's one thing that I liked about that movie. But what didn't you like?
It just didn't grab me. I think I liked it just because Tom Hardy. And I like Tom Hardy. I can watch the guy all day. And I like him because he always has like these weird voices, and he always he gets in this character so well.
Did you like at least him
I liked
in the movie?
I liked him in the movie.
Okay.
He made it passable. But I wanted more from it because I like John Hillcoat. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a little bit more of a story. And I just felt it lost the story, and it didn't come full circle for me at all. And I like the way that he dies at the end.
Right.
Nothing killed this fucker. But the
right. And
ice.
He stumbles in. Right?
Stumbles into water and falls through the ice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's just so awesome.
And we talked a little bit earlier off camera about your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my expectation for Lawless. I found that in the Walmart Blu-ray dump bin.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that this was a thing. And it was $7, and I was like, sure. And then I watched it. I'm like, that was pretty good.
Okay.
So you had some expectations.
True enough.
I grabbed it out of a bin where it was mixed in with.
And so you had nothing to lose.
Yeah, right.
You had nothing to
It was
lose.
mixed in with.
And I went to see it in the theater opening weekend. I was excited.
Okay,
And I was
yeah.
like, yeah. And I was like,
So I
it
took-
just
so
it kind of bored me
expectation-
for the most part.
Yeah, expectations, big time.
That is a huge thing. Much like Lion King, like we talked about. I have expectations for that, but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
So, two more. Johnny Depp's, or I should say Michael Mann's, Public Enemies. Now, I like Michael Mann a lot. Doesn't always make the winner. I like him a lot because of just kind of a couple movies he's made that I really love, so I give him the benefit of the doubt. I also like Johnny Depp from time to time, and he's not playing Johnny Depp here. He's playing
guy.
John Dillinger. But it just sucked as a story. Like, it just was dull and lifeless, and I was like, this is a boring freaking movie.
Now I haven't watched Public Enemies, but let's. I'm gonna go. It's for the way you're describing it. I'm gonna go ahead and lump it right in with some of these dud gangster movies that have come out recently. That's one of them. That one Public Enemies got some pretty bad reviews.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
then and also Gangster Squad got
that
some
was
pretty,
Ruben Fleischer.
and I have a couple of.
He did Zombieland.
Yeah, I took a couple. Like I liked the cast. You got Ryan Gosling, Sean Penn, Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, I mean.
Josh Brolin as a gangster is almost.
Wasn't he a cop in the movie? I thought he was one of the cops.
Maybe hard-boiled detective is what I should say.
Okay.
He plays the hard-boiled detective in
That's
that,
right.
So you got to see him fighting the gangsters, and he was a rough
Crew,
and tumble dude,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was really cool
He
to
was
see
like
him.
the Russell Crowe in L.A. Confidential.
Yes, he was that character, and it was so cool to see him wearing like the fedora and like the doing all that stuff.
Right.
He's like he should be in more of that. And it had Nick Nolte, Robert Patrick. Anyway,
Great cast. And but I remember the dialogue is so awful.
the dialogue sucks.
Things that happen, you're like, why did that happen?
It has some really boring segments of it.
Yep.
And also, here's my little note here. Essentially feels like a flashy remake of The Untouchables, and obviously nowhere is good. It's nowhere. It's a
good.
similar story, right?
Yeah.
We're getting together a band of guys
Right.
who's going to go against these guys, and we're not going to follow all the rules, and we got Tommy guns too.
Sounds exactly like Untouchables.
Yeah, but then they were like, Josh Brolin, awesome presence. Awesome.
Right.
Why couldn't he have been that in a... I hope somebody sees that and was like, we need to revisit that part
Yeah,
of it.
right. Now, and I remember watching part of that movie. Part of the movie, and I remember watching, and I really like Ryan Gosling because I love Drive. And I think he's really underrated, and he needs to do more of that kind of stuff. But
Yes.
I like him a lot, and I remember he had kind of like a weirdness to his voice again. And I remember watching that movie and going, something's really wrong here. Like, he didn't fit in that movie for some reason, and it was like dialogue that he was given. I was like, this is like, who wrote this shit? Like, there's some stupid lines of dialogue that I couldn't believe they were happening.
It sounded like he was really struggling to deliver those lines.
Right.
And they wanted him to do an accent.
Right.
and he did one, and it didn't really fit. I think it changes a little bit from scene to scene.
It's almost like he was doing his own Tom Hardy impersonation, like changing his voice and making himself sound different.
And so that was like, that was rough to see him, because he's got the chops to make something happen.
And those guys, these people they're good directors who are in part of these movies. Well, Ruben Fleischer, I don't know. I mean, he's okay. I like Zombieland.
Yeah,
that's about it.
But I mean, that's a fun movie. But this was
okay.
Yeah.
Last one, American Gangster, Ridley Scott.
You did not like it.
Did not like it.
It's a little slow.
It's very slow, and it just wasn't grabbing me. Like, I wasn't interested.
I saw it in the theater.
I wasn't sympathetic to Russell Crowe and all his problems that he was going through to get this. I wasn't sympathetic to his issues, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be sympathetic for him trying to do what he's doing and fighting this uphill battle. Yeah. And I just didn't care.
With American Gangster, I was so excited to go see it. I went
Denzel, Ridley Scott, or Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. I was in.
Yeah.
I was in. And it has one scene in it that that sticks out, which is, I don't know if you remember the scene where he's having breakfast. Denzel Washington, his character, his boss character, and they're like, "Oh, that guy down the street, who owes you money, go, he's right there."
Okay.
And he gets up from breakfast and walks down the street, says, "Hey, you got that money that you owe me?" And he's like, "I'm not paying you that money." And then he takes out his gun and he's like, I'm going to shoot you. And then he's like, "What are you going to do? Shoot me out in broad daylight?" And he's like, boom.
Yep. Right.
That scene, amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't even consider a spoiler alert. Watch that scene on YouTube.
There can be great moments in bad movies.
Yeah.
Right? There's great moments in that.
It's a slow movie.
And I love watching Denzel be the bad guy. That's cool. I like that, but I just didn't care about the movie. And Ridley Scott has made lots of misses. We have expectations. You go see a Steven Spielberg movie, Ridley Scott movie, a Michael Mann movie, all the movies, the directors who have made really good movies in the past, and you expect some greatness every time. It doesn't always happen. Yeah. And those are four right there. Sergio Leone, John Hillcoat, Michael Mann, Ridley Scott. I did not like anyone of those.
Important directors making stuff a little bit later on, and Ridley. I mean, short aside, I'm glad that Ridley Scott did not direct the Blade Runner sequel.
Woo!
Because
hell yeah,
the Blade Runner 2049 was directed by, I don't know what his name is.
Denis Villeneuve.
He was, but he was worried that people would roast him, and he wanted to do it justice, and I think he did.
Oh, he did it more than justice. That's
and
a beautiful
if
movie.
Ridley Scott directed that, he would have messed it up, and you know it.
I know
what I mean?
Yeah, I am not confident anymore at Ridley Scott's ability. Now, unfortunately, the passing of his brother really hurt that ability. Now, I remember when Tony Scott died, he was making The Counselor. It's a terribly sad story because he's in the middle of making this movie with a great cast, written by Cormac McCarthy, his first screenplay as opposed to book, and you're like, okay, hell yeah. And the movie just sucked. I didn't even finish it. I can't get through the movie, and it's because he wasn't into it. His brother just died, so he was not involved with that movie mentally or emotionally, and he was absent from it, and that movie suffered, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I was really sad about that. All right. Before we get to the top five, do you have any other notes that you want to mention here before we get to our top five?
Well, let me just take a quick glance just to make sure. Drop the bomb with Godfather. Check. I saw other thing. Movie that you see on a lot of these lists. Leon the Professional. It's on all these lists. It has gangsters in it. Is it a gangster movie?
No.
It's more.
He's a hitman.
It's a hitman movie.
Yeah, he takes jobs. He's not a part of a gang.
Right.
And he's an enforcer.
You see a little bit of that with the guy who took him under and he takes care of the guy's money.
Sure.
You see, there's parts of it, but again, it isn't the majority.
Right.
That's not the story.
Right.
So I feel one movie that one of my, you know what? Actually, I just realized I'm kind of going through my favorite list. Sorry. Okay. So we're going to. So yeah.
All right.
Let's just say Leon the Professional Hitman movie. Okay, go ahead.
Hitman movie.
Right, okay.
All right. We're going to talk about our top five independently.
All right.
Top five movies in the gangster genre.
I didn't do a top five.
What'd you have?
I got like 3.
Okay. We're going to do the top 3 gangster movies.
I'll add. All right.
Yeah, I'll add. How about you go first?
Okay. So one of we already talked about it, but so we don't have to go into depth. Road to Perdition.
Okay.
It is one of my favorites.
Nice.
Absolutely one of my favorites. And we talked about why it's so
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
I think it is underrated.
And if you
should be
haven't,
revisited.
and if you haven't, sorry to cut you off, if you haven't seen it, do, because it's a beautiful looking movie. Besides everything else, the cool story, great acting, great costumes, everything's great, but it's such a beautiful looking movie. It's really cool.
Yes,
Carry on.
fantastic. It just needs to be. I think people should revisit it
Yeah.
or seek it out because
Yeah.
I feel like
I think it's overshadowed.
big time.
I'm not sure why. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I got to check out the reviews and see really like how it landed. But
Right. And I need to watch it again. It's been a long time. I'd like to see how I sit with it.
Absolutely, it holds up.
Daniel
I
Craig's the
think
bad guy, so
oh God,
younger Daniel Craig.
Yeah, he's awesome in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked so much about different little, so obviously Goodfellas is on my list. I think Goodfellas is going to be on everybody's list.
Goodfellas is on my list.
Yeah, and
No
it
doubt.
is. I almost feel like we don't have to talk about it, but it's just I think it encompasses it sells you on the life. Then it scares the hell out of you.
Right.
And then by the time all that happens and things start going wrong, you're so pulled into it, and it's just it's like the perfect.
So it's
Gangster movie.
it's a perfect gangster movie, right? And so I don't have to touch on it. I'll keep going with it because that's on my list too. It's a good movie, right? It's a really good movie on its own. But then you look at the gangster part of it, the gangster genre part of it, the mob part of it. It is the quintessential of the gangster movies because of everything you said. It's got the family, the loyalty, the fear, the
Shady bit.
shadiness, and then you got that. It has all the intangibles that you need to make it a good gangster movie, but it's also just a really good movie.
Oh, yeah.
From front to end. Choice of music, for crying out loud, is amazing in this movie, right?
If the cast and it's firing on all cylinders.
Right.
It's I would argue to say it's pretty much a perfect film.
Yeah.
Overall,
It absolutely
whether you
is.
even if you don't care about gangsters, you should still watch
Yeah,
it.
it should be anyone's top 10 list of all time.
Yeah.
When you think, maybe not top 5, but top 10.
Yeah.
It should be on the list. As just a movie, not a gangster movie, just a movie. All right.
Yep.
Number 3.
All right. So this one huge for me.
Oh.
It is A History of Violence.
Holy shit. Nice addition.
And I would say, and the basic premise, if you haven't seen it,
I like it, Ben.
He's you got Viggo Mortensen plays a guy who was involved in the mob, and he wanted out. He changed his name, and he got married, and started a family, and then the mob comes looking for him in his little town.
All because he does something out of pure reaction to save somebody, and he gets in the news, and all of a sudden
He's a local hero,
Yep.
and then there he is. We found him.
Yep.
And it's what's really cool about it is that you were saying earlier. There's got I know there's characters where they get into the mob, they shouldn't be in there, and so it's them trying to get out.
Yeah.
Here's a guy, you found out that he got out. You're rooting for him. He's got a family that he loves,
Right.
kids, the whole thing, and then you find out that he's the nastiest one of them all.
Yeah. That turn right there was really shocking.
Yeah, and so that movie, I don't
It's from a comic book, by the way, too, a graphic novel.
I did not know that. But that is one of my absolute favorites.
It's really cool.
And
It has one of the best muff diving scenes ever.
it actually, it does.
I mean, he is going to town. It seems like 15 minutes. It's pretty graphic.
Well, keep in mind, there's an unrated cut of that movie.
Oh.
And I'm guessing that's, if you watch you probably watched it on DVD.
It's on the theater.
Oh, you saw it in theater. Well,
Yeah.
then, maybe they let him
Maybe they go
get away with it.
Because they Brown Bunny with have you heard of Frank I forgot the guy's name, but the two and Chloe, she's in the new zombie movie. I forgot her name, Chloe something or other. She
78? Oh,
Yep.
yeah,
She
okay.
gives her boyfriend I forgot his name. He was the director of the movie. He gave her head. She gave him head. Sorry, wrong way.
Yeah.
She gave him head in the movie, like literally like, on screen. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Brown Bunny. I'm gonna go check that out. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Okay. But I gotta tell you, I'm really impressed with History of Violence because didn't even think about that as a gangster movie. But it is.
That one absolutely
Absolutely,
is.
because he's a mobster, he's a gangster, he's getting out, and the gang comes back to him. So it has all the elements.
The whole thing is all there, and it's it's an example of what happens when you try to get out,
Right.
and then it's interesting because then you're like, why did he want out?
Right.
You know, why
Right.
did he? But
And then when you start to love a character because of who he is now, then you find out the skeletons are there and he's not a good guy. That really is a dramatic twist for an audience to be like, but I liked him.
well, you know
But
what?
I used to love him.
Yeah. Well, you know what though, and then we gotta link them up. History of violence. Okay, you got a absolutely brutal top tier killer.
Yeah.
Decides he wants a part of the good normal life,
Right.
and then they come back to pull him out of there. What is John Wick again?
Yeah.
Okay, but the
Yeah,
difference,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you know,
right.
I think the difference is that with John Wick, you see him obviously taking these guys down, but you still kind of don't know what some of the other stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a little bit of a respect and a class to what he does, whereas
Sure.
the Viggo Mortensen character is like he's sick.
Yeah.
He's sick in the way he gets it done.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was, But anyway,
Hey, man, nice choices, nice selections. All right, I'm going to give you mine.
Okay.
Top 5. I'm going to do my first 2 we're going to be together.
go ahead.
Godfather 1 and 2.
What movies are those? I haven't heard of them. Maybe I should check them out.
And do watch them in the order that they came out, even though Godfather 2 has flashbacks
right.
about
Okay.
Vito Corleone. You're going to watch them 1 and 2, even though, because I actually think 2 is a better movie. Because of, I mean, De Niro as young Vito Corleone is just, it's brilliant casting, and it's a really awesome movie. Number 1 is good for itself, just by itself. The blacks in this movie, I mean, like the contrast, the blacks in the movie are really amazing. When I saw it on DVD for the first time, I was like, holy cow, you could see like things in the shadows for the first time. It was so cool. He's gonna watch it.
And I have it.
Okay.
I have the Blu-ray set.
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah, he has it.
I have it. Yeah.
He has it. Okay, number 2, or well, 3. Number 2, Goodfellas. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay.
Goodfellas.
Number 3, The Untouchables.
Great. Amazing choice.
Love The Untouchables. The music, it's De Palma, right? It's got Ennio Morricone's music.
It's so good.
It's got De Niro as Al Capone, and it's got one of the best endings ever. Where they're on the stairwell with the timing and the clock and the tension and the kid and the stroller.
It's iconic.
And then, oh my God, it's so good.
It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
And although that movie, I think that one's really well cemented.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
People loved it.
But there's so many memorable moments I have from him taking Frank Nitti and throwing him off the building and saying, I forgot what he says. Did he sound like that?
Yeah, right.
And oh my God, when the nerdy, the bookworm gets
Right.
killed in the elevator. Oh my God, and you don't even see it happen, but you hear it, and then you see the after effects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's so many.
It's heartbreaking.
The bomb going off with the little girl in the beginning.
It's,
I mean, it shows you the terror of a gang, and it really sells that off really, really well.
And also, and I was waiting for you to talk about it, so you could just add this. That's a movie where you're rooting for the good guys.
Yes. You are definitely not rooting for the gangsters in this movie. That's an interesting point, because typically, if you look at all these, you're rooting for the bad guy.
Yep.
Almost every time.
Untouchables.
Even if the good guy's a bad guy. Yeah, you're rooting for the good guys. Only. I did like Frank Nitti. He was awesome in the movie.
He was awesome.
Little weasel.
You did not root for him, though.
No.
So,
Especially
yeah.
he killed Sean Connery.
Yeah,
You don't root for anybody who kills Sean Connery.
No.
Okay. And now my last one. No, I have 2 more. I'm sorry. Departed. Love The Departed. Modern time movie now.
Yep.
But man, really hits home with the undercover aspect, with everyone dying at the end. I mean, it's just...
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty
nuts.
badass. And it actually makes Mark Wahlberg into a fun character for a minute.
Yeah, it does.
Actually like
and that's Scorsese,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
so real quick aside, we have to mention this in this video.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always waiting for the next Scorsese gangster movie to come out. Okay,
We have one.
and the one coming out is going to be The Irishman, I believe.
Yep.
But then I've read that what they've done is, he's got his major players in there, I believe, Al Pacino and De Niro, and they did some de-aging effects. That the reason why this movie's been pushed back is that they're not happy with how it looks.
Oh.
That's why this movie, you've heard about it for so long.
It's a Netflix movie, though, right? It's not a feature film, theatrical film.
Right, right. And somebody spent a lot, it might have even been Scorsese spent a lot of his own money to do it, but not happy with those effects. And that's kind of sad because some de-aging effects have been excellent lately. You've seen them in a couple different movies.
Yeah. I mean, really good lately.
Ant-Man, Blade Runner had some.
Star Wars.
Star Wars 1.
Yeah.
Yes. So they've gotten really good.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with The Irishman might be, this is just a guess, too much of it. You can't have half a movie that's a D8. It's got to be quick and wow.
Yeah. And not dwell too long on it.
You can't dwell too long on it because then it just looks more fake as it goes on.
Right.
And so anyway, so that's
okay.
I hope it can be. I hope it can be salvaged.
Yeah, I do too because I've been waiting for it. And I was wondering where the hell is it?
If you read about it, it should have already been out a long time ago already.
Okay. All right. So my last one of my top 5 gangster movies, Dillinger.
And I haven't seen it.
And I think this is a. I want to say it's a Walter Hill movie again.
I believe it is.
I think it is. And it's starring Warren Oates as Dillinger. And I fell in love with Warren Oates after seeing him in the Wild Bunch. And he's a fantastic actor. He's usually the second guy, the third guy. He's never really never typically the main guy unless he's working with Sam Peckinpah.
Right.
He's got a couple times there. But with Dillinger, it was a really cool because you got I think it's got Richard Dreyfuss in it. He plays one of the gangsters in the day. And it's just a cool movie being able to see Dillinger in that way with characters who I fell in love with in Westerns. And it's a really cool movie.
It's on. I will tell you right now. It is on my list, though.
Is that? So, you haven't seen it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that one's
really
on
cool.
my list. So
and it's one of those surprises that I never even thought about seeing it unless I knew who Warren Oates was, and I was like, Warren Oates. Let's check it out. And then you're like, holy crap, this is really cool.
Yeah, and I think Kino, the company, has they have the rights to that movie. So their movies are a little bit more expensive. So I can't get them cheap. I try to buy my Blu-rays as cheap as I can.
Okay.
Because I have such a huge collection and it's a monitor, So.
The reason why I like it is because not only is it Warren Oates, but it's Ben Johnson. So in the Wild Bunch, Ben Johnson and Warren Oates play brothers, the Gorch brothers, and so that chemistry they had is not in this movie that way because they're both on the opposite sides. One plays the cop. And one plays John Dillinger. But having them both in together again, it's one of those like when you get Pacino and De Niro in the movie. You just want to go watch it.
Yeah, when you get the gang together back in, you're gonna watch.
And because I like my older movies, I always like going back to that stuff where those old characters and seeing those guys together again. And it's a really cool movie. When you see it, you're gonna really like it.
I'm excited for that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've talked enough about gangsters,
Yep.
the mob, and the mob lifestyle. And not that I want to be a gangster, but it's fun to fascinate about what that life would be like. So, Ben, do you have any parting thoughts here for?
Honestly, my big takeaway is I just don't want anyone to think that I'm a lesser person for having saved The Godfather 1 and 2, because I feel the worst now about my decision to do that.
Well, telling me is gonna make me just get into it.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not like I saw it. You know what? I don't get what the big deal is.
Oh, we would have different conversations at that point.
There's like a Family Guy joke where Peter says that. He goes, you know what? Didn't care for The Godfather. Just didn't like it.
Yeah, okay.
So.
But there's a lot of people that I know that I can expect that from.
Right? And it's not me.
Not you.
Yeah, it's not me.
No, you know good cinema. If you watch a movie, typically we might disagree on like or love of a movie.
Yeah.
Lawless is one of them, right? But a good movie is a good movie for a reason.
Right.
It's a classic for a reason, right? It's a classic for a reason. So
yeah, I know it falls in that category, but yeah. So don't try and do your best to forgive me on that.
I'm gonna edit that out somehow.
Oh.
I'm not. All right, so Ben, hey man, this has been awesome seeing you again. Oh, watch out for the arm.
Yeah, thank you.
And hey everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget the subscribe button right over here in the corner somewhere. Hit the subscribe button, like and follow the J. Craig. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Ben, thanks for having me over again today.
All right, thanks.
All right, man. See you later.